What is going on, guys? And in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Indian Scout, the Cruiser Edition, which is a recent summer reward vehicle here on the Crew 2. And I gotta admit, overall first glance, even when I was test driving this thing in the Summit, it does look pretty awesome. I mean, really like those taillights on the back there, and that huge rear tire is absolutely insane. Plus there's really nice suspension there with the detail of the engine, the really nice red and tan color on the bike there. Loving the headlight, by the way. That looks really cool as well. That little cool side mirror. I really don't know how I actually feel about the mirrors being down like that, mainly because I just feel like they might get in the way, or looking down like that on a bike probably isn't the greatest idea. And then we have the really nice front brakes there, which are absolutely huge. Red brake calipers as well, with the really nice tan looking exhaust here that match the bike. Those look awesome. Then we're gonna have the Indian sign on bottom there, and then the nice leather looking seat, which looks pretty awesome. I really do like the detail of this bike. Ubisoft did do a great job with this thing. Anyway, when it comes to customization, there really isn't much you can do to it because it is a Summit vehicle, and well, all you can actually do is add a livery or some vanity items you guys might actually own. But besides that, there really isn't much of anything, which kind of makes sense because looking at the bike, I mean, what could you actually add to this thing from first glance? I mean, not really much could go on this thing to begin with. So after looking over the bike pretty well in the house, let's come outside and see it out here. So I gotta admit, listen to this engine sound right now. Like, that sounds awesome. And with the exhaust facing the ground, that would obviously increase the sound of the bike in real life, and or, well, in the game, I would think, for that matter. Kind of sounds like that a little bit, but let's go take a look at it in first person here. So I'm kind of mixed how I feel about the first person camera on this. Like, I really got to know in the comments below, do you guys actually like the camera view in the Crew 2 on bikes? What are your thoughts on it? Do you like the one in the Crew 1 more? Like, I've been kind of mixed on this bike, riding it around a little bit. Some of the other bikes actually look okay in first person, and some of them just look honestly kind of weird. And I think this one might be on the category of weird. And one thing I was testing out right away with this bike was its brakes, because in the Summit, when I was riding it and I was trying to see how the brakes were, they honestly weren't that great. But now testing it out, I mean, that's actually really not too bad. I had them more toward the front, which in real terms of motorcycles here, obviously most of the stopping power is in the front of a bike because the front brakes are normally huge. And well, for this bike, having all the braking power in the rear seems to be helping it stop a lot more. When I had it more toward the front, it really wasn't stopping at all, which is kind of hilarious, but at least it is now. I really do like the sound of this engine on here as well. This bike really does sound great, and I gotta say, the overall handling, I'm not really shocked that it's not that great. The main reason why I say that is, well, if we really take a look at this bike here, it's not a racing bike, it's more of a cruiser, and who's actually going to be racing this thing around a track looking at it like this? I mean, this thing isn't like a Gixxer or like a Yamaha like R1 or something like that. It's literally just a cruiser bike, which makes complete sense, and the bike's being topped out at 200 miles an hour on the Crew 2. Honestly, in the street class would make a lot more sense for this game compared to the Crew 1. Remember how fast the bikes were in that game was crazy, but if you guys want to go faster than that, the lovely touring bikes do better. They do like 230, 240. But I gotta say, the acceleration on this bike's actually pretty decent. So overall, no nitrous yet. I'm gonna hit it right now to do a little top speed run. So it's gonna be around 208 miles an hour, 207 miles an hour is gonna be top, which I kind of expected. And I'm not really too surprised about that there for that matter. And one thing that was kind of making me laugh was when I was actually testing this bike out in the beginning of that race in the Summit, I was really annoyed by the actual sound of the engine here. You guys will notice in higher RPMs here. Take a listen to this. It kind of sounds almost like that mosquito glitch sound from like that weird sound from Black Ops 2 back in the day, and that's probably most likely because the exhaust is facing the ground, so the sound's obviously bouncing off the ground, which would make more sense after really analyzing this bike a little bit more and looking at it. And overall, the handling, like I said before, really isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm going to take it in a race in a second and test it out. But it's actually not really awful in any way. I think it's going to be more of like I said, the cruiser type. It's not going to be made for going against Superleggera or like the Porsche in any way. And obviously the speed's going to really mess this thing up a little bit on that. But overall, the driving on it's actually pretty dang good. It is pretty fun to drive around on, and I'm loving the sound of this bike overall. Anyway, let's jump into a race and test it out in there. So I figured for this bike, I'll actually take it in the Vegas Strip Special because I don't think anyone's actually going to be using this thing on bigger races because the speed is just honestly not there. But let's see how this thing will actually handle on a little race like this and see if it can actually do it. So obviously the handle is going to be a little bit slower. Oh my, it's struggling a little bit here. Let's speed up a little bit. So you're not going to be able to keep up with really any cars on most of these races, but at least if the bike can actually do a little bit. I really don't think anyone's actually going to be racing this thing, like I said before. It's probably going to be more of like, I'm going to go cruise around on the map or like do some of the new stories with something like this would be a lot of fun. But doing races like this or trying to compete in summits with it probably just isn't going to work. But I'd rather them not add vehicles that are constantly super fast or something like that and can like be super competitive, and maybe something more just like casual driving around would be pretty cool. And I'm not really surprised this thing's struggling a little bit too, because there's like a lot of, you know, uneven ground, curbs, and like sidewalks, all kinds of stuff this thing's driving on. Flying around the turn actually wasn't too bad there at 80 miles an hour. Speed up a little bit. So overall speed on the bike really isn't too bad. It's actually kind of exactly what I expected from riding this thing a little bit. I mean, I wasn't thinking it was going to be like super fast like one of the Suzukis or something like that, but it's actually better than I thought. Oh, I'm struggling right now. Woo! And I'm not really surprised because this thing just doesn't really turn that well because it, well, can't. And should it be able to? Probably not, but I'm going to drive this thing in first person now. How weird this actually looks. I want to see how it actually rides like this. Hit the nitrous here and accelerate. So I noticed when using the nitrous with Nitro Chemist, even then it doesn't really shoot the bike up too much, which could be part of it being in the street class, but also just not being a very quick vehicle in general for that matter, which really isn't too bad of a thing. But I feel like a lot of people might not really like that too much. That'll honestly sum it up, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the Indian Scout that was added in the Summit. Will you guys be using this thing, and will you be racing it? What are your favorite things you like about it? What are some things you don't? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for tuning into this video.